Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm really excited to be interviewing Chris Burres today. Did I pronounce that right? Chris Burres?
Yes, you did.
Chris Burres. And what's your last name? I'm just curious. Like, what's the
So the origin of birth is Scottish, right? So
Scottish?
I
Okay.
haven't done any ancestry.com or anything, and I've been told that it's Scottish.
Okay, Scottish. I need to do ancestry.com. My girlfriend did that. She's half Korean, half Mexican. She saw some interesting things in ancestry.com, and I'm half Indian, half Mexican, so I'm sure it'll be the same story on my end.
Yeah. I need to do it because I think you'll discover very interesting things about your heritage, and it's just cool.
Yeah, it's cool to know because other than that, I just know the story that my parents told me, which for all they know was what their parents told them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so sorry for going off on the tangent, but in any case, to continue on the bio, Chris is the co-founder of SES Research Industries. He has a diverse background as an engineer, scientist, and entrepreneur. Through leading edge and peer-reviewed research, Chris and his partner confirmed their findings on carbon 60, also known as ESS 60, a Nobel Prize-winning technology that was originally meant for military defense, now sought out by global mega corporations. Now he's a man on a mission to make this revolutionary product accessible to everyone who wants to live a healthier, pain-free life longer than they ever expected to. Chris, so good to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much for having me. And we talked about this before. That is Nobel, not Noble.
Nobel, not Nobel. Yeah, I saw the typo on there earlier, and I was like, well, I've never heard of the Nobel Peace Prize, but I'm sure it exists.
They are very noble characters who earn it, but it is in fact
Yes.
a Nobel Peace Prize.
Thank you for clarifying. So, Chris, let's dive in a little bit on your background for my audience. So, who would you say Chris Burres is? Just give us the
Yeah.
long story or the short story, whatever you prefer.
So my dad was in the Air Force, and I moved every 2 years. So I'm definitely a military brat. My dad got a job in Houston, and so right at the time I was going to college, so I went to the University of Houston, go Cougs, studied mechanical engineering, and while I was in school, my current business partner, Robert Wong, was working at the Texas Center for Superconductivity, and he was separating material called fullerenes. And at the time, fullerenes were selling for about $6,000 a gram. One of the professors, actually, Dr. Paul Chu, is kind of very famous in the superconductivity industry. He came in and he said, "You guys are young guys. This is, a valuable material. You should start this business." My business partner was from an entrepreneurial background, and so he thought, "Yes, I'm going to start this business." And they kind of engaged me as a mechanical engineer to help them put together drawings and design the equipment. And I was really supposed to go away. There was another business partner involved, and I kind of didn't go away. And the other business partner did go away. He's doing very well, and he's very happy, and so am I. and and so we're the first company that exists to deliver commercial quantities of carbon nanomaterials. And we're kind of here today to talk about ESS 60, but we can get into that. But that's kind of me as it relates to the company SES Research.
Awesome. So, I did see on your LinkedIn profile you studied at the University of Houston. So, I'm glad you brought it up because I was going to ask. I do live very close to the campus, and I am kind of raised in Houston, not born in Houston, but I've been here most of my life.
Yeah.
I wanted to see, would you say that attending U of H kind of shaped your path pretty significantly? Or, I mean, I guess you met your business partner at that university. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So it's hard for me to even remember I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So as a really young kid, I had a Lamborghini on a poster on my wall, and
I got one on mine.
there you go. And I definitely wanted a Lamborghini. And this is pre-internet age, so I don't even know how I found an article, and the article is like, what do you need to do if you want a Lamborghini? And the article, somehow I got a hold of it. Maybe it was Popular Science or something. And the article said, if you want to have like one Lamborghini, you become a physician. If you want to have multiple Lamborghinis, you become an entrepreneur. And right, so 14-year-old me was like, I would like more than one. And so I went down this. I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. In fact, that's why I pursued mechanical engineering, because it can be a pretty quick degree. It wasn't with me, but it can be a pretty quick degree and then a pretty good salary to kind of fund my entrepreneurial endeavors. And so that's why I studied mechanical engineering. And yeah, I would say at the University of Houston, the average age of the student is about 28. So it's an older school.
Okay.
career people who are interested in whatever education is going to further their career. And so I was in that environment at the same time. So yeah, and of course I met my business partner there. So it absolutely shaped, but not just that piece, other pieces did as well.
Awesome. Good to hear. I always like to clarify because I know some people are always torn on the university question of, did it really help or did it just kind of distract me and put me into some student debt with the loans and all of that? So thank you for sharing on that. And I had another question for SES. How long did you have that idea before you guys started that? Was it something that you talked about or did you kind of jump right into it?
Yeah, great question. So really, my business partner had, I think, been mulling it over for a couple of weeks from the point that that professor said, "Hey, you should go start this business." And then literally they approached me and I was like, "Yeah, let's go. I'll help you do the drawings and let's get this started." And so for me, it wasn't, I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur and here was this opportunity. So I jumped on it immediately. There was no hesitation. I can tell you, a lot of people talk about writing business plans, and business plans I do believe are really important, really just for your ability to put together a strategy in the current environment. I can tell you our entire business plan was based on the University of Houston purchasing material ESS 60 from us, and to this day they have not. So the whole business plan
Was contingent on.
didn't pan out the way that we had planned that business plan.
Wow. But it's funny because that's at least what gets you started down the path. And then you find that you get other avenues to pursue and other revenue streams from customers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. A business plan is about being able to make a strategy in today's environment and understanding that in tomorrow's environment, it's probably all going to change. And it certainly has for us.
Definitely. And I know it's just a basic framework of your vision of how you want it to go. A lot of times it looks completely opposite, but at least it's something to start with.
Yeah, absolutely. So you need to have that dedication. You need to kind of put together the spreadsheets that are cost predictions of what's going to happen. And then you got to be willing to pivot rapidly.
Yeah, rapidly and sometimes quite often, depending
Yeah.
on how the numbers and the business is going.
Well, I can, as an example, so for SES Research from 1991 until 2013 or so, really 2017 is the right number. We were a carbon nanomaterial sales company that sold research materials into institutions around the world. And so we'll get into kind of the direction that we ended up going, but we had to pivot because, really now I have a supplement. I never wanted to be a supplement. I didn't wake up one day and say, I need to help people. I need to discover a supplement and then take that to the industry. Not that I'm certainly not, obviously I love helping people, but really this just landed in my lap and I'm as skeptical as anyone about what's actually happening. So we're funding research related to it. So that's a major, major pivot.
Thanks for sharing all those details because it's an interesting, I guess I haven't had a guest who has talked about this kind of business yet, especially in the supplement space or like the science in general. So this is pretty exciting. And I'm sure we're going to have some people in the audience reach out and tell me oh, that was really interesting. Totally different than the stereotypical, sales funnel agency or whatever.
And I can tell you, I'm currently learning. So one of the ways to go to market, so the current market is pretty small and it's related to just people who have heard about it or a friend has recommended it. And it's a pretty relatively small market. So in the CBD industry, there's about 100,000 brands.
Wow. I know it's very saturated already.
Very crazy. And in our industry, there's probably 30 brands or so. And and so it has the potential. The testimonials are very similar to CBD. There's actually some legitimate research in CBD related to epilepsy. There's legitimate research related to what we sell, the ESS 60, as it relates to longevity. And we'll get that, it'll be a teaser. What would it be like to live almost twice as long? We'll start talking about that here in a second.
That's crazy. I was actually listening to another podcast recently. I guess it said about 100 years ago, the median age people would live to 46 or something. And now we're already past, double that. I don't know what the median is now, but I know people are constantly getting up to the 80s and 90s, some in the hundreds. So if we could double what it is already, gosh, I know
Yeah.
time is our finite resource, and we're like, what are we going to do in our one life that we have? But you can kind of make it almost two lives if you could double it. So I'm definitely interested to talk more about that.
All right. Well, if you want, I can jump into that right away because there's some pretty amazing research that is peer reviewed, published study.
Yeah, we can jump right into it. I'd love to hear because I know I want to ask it later, but I don't want to forget. So let's just jump right into it now, if that's
Okay. So here we are, kind of carbon nanomaterial scientists selling research materials into the research community. And in 2012, well, let's take a step back. The material was discovered back in 1985 by Dr. Richard Smalley at Rice University. So this is like a Houston episode, right?
yeah.
He discovered it in 1985 and had won the Nobel Prize by 1996. It's 11 years, which is incredibly short for a Nobel Prize award. Usually it's 50, 60 years down the road, even.
Like a lifetime of work, right?
Yeah, and it's that far down that the scientific community kind of realizes and says, "Oh wow, that discovery you had so long ago was really important. Here's your Nobel Prize." The reason that Dr. Smalley and his group won it so quickly was that they figured out that this carbon 60, we call it ESS 60, that ESS 60 was like a 3D version of benzene. And I don't know if you've taken a chemistry class or kind of aware of the value of benzene in our society, but it's in every plastic, it's in most medicines, it's ubiquitous. And without benzene, we wouldn't have the society that we have now. So they took this shape, and the shape is actually, it's 60 carbon atoms, and it's in the shape of a soccer ball. So if you look at the lines on the soccer ball, the lines on the soccer ball represent the bonds between the carbon atoms. And so these 60 carbon atoms, they figured it would be like a 3D version of benzene. And benzene is so important, so really valuable that's why he won the Nobel Prize real quickly. So kind of fast forward in 2012, they figured a lot of people would be working with this material. They need to do toxicity studies because benzene is toxic. They assumed that this ESS 60 would be toxic as well. So they took that ESS 60, they put it in, and they gave it to rats. So they had one test group that was given water, one test group that was given olive oil, and one test group that was given olive oil with C60 in it, or ESS 60. And instead of being toxic, that group actually lived 90% longer.
Wow, 90%.
Yeah, not only that, those rats, a typical Worcester rat will live 32 months. These rats, the ones given ESS 60 and olive oil, lived 62 months, and none of them had tumors. All of the ones with given the water, the control group, died with tumors. That's typical of a Worcester rat. None of them that were given ESS 60 and olive oil had any tumors.
And did it say how many rats were in this study?
So it was 6 rats per group. So
Okay,
one of the kind of critiques is that it's a small study. In reality, all 6 of the rats. So the grouping on it, if you had this really sparse data and it was all over the place, then you would have some serious critiques about it. In reality, those 6 rats were very tightly grouped. In fact, they had to kill the last rat in the ESS 60 olive oil group. So they were down to 2. It's month 62. Imagine this poor researcher. He's going to do a 32-month study, and he could have ended it. Like, kudos to him, Bhatti and his group, for at 32 months they could have just said, well, clearly it's not toxic because they lived a little bit longer than the control group. They continued for another 2.5 years. So yeah, that's the study. So they lived twice as long. They actually had to euthanize the last rat. And kudos to the researcher because he extended this for more than 2.5 years, this study, longer than it should have been. And now we've got this amazing, by the way, this is the single longest longevity experiment on mammals known to man. Like, the only other way to extend your life is well documented, that you can starve yourself almost to death and extend your life by 10 to 15%. Yeah, and I tell people that, and the usual response is, well, I don't really
I'm
want
not going to do that, right?
What's the other option?
Yeah, I've started to look more into the health videos and things of getting yourself very hungry and doing 4-day fasts or 24-hour fasts to get your metabolism going in a certain way and prolong your health. But yeah, I mean, I'd like a miracle pill instead of having to do that because I get very hungry quickly. I'm always snacking throughout the day.
Yeah, well, So two questions came up for me, right? So you've got this study and it's the longest longevity experiment on mammals. And so for me, I was like, well, one, is there a longer study? Because I just, when we got the study initially, by the way, when that study came out in 2012, it was about 2013 that we started getting phone calls at our office like, hey, how much in a dose? And we're like, no, we sell it to research institutions. They put it in tires and solar cells and batteries. You don't put this in your body. Like the literature was clear that it was safe, especially with this particular research.
Right.
But we actually added not for human consumption to our labeling in 2013 because our nanomaterial science thought process was like, no, goes in batteries and solar cells, not in the human body.
Right. So other people were getting hold of this research or getting wind of it and then reaching out to you.
Yes. Yeah.
So is that kind of what got you started in looking into that aspect of it?
So it is. And again, and even in 2013, when we added that to our labeling, if you research the literature, they had taken the carbon 60 powder and kind of inject it under the skin of the rats, and it was fine. They had actually had them inhale it because it's a nanomaterial. They thought that it might have some kind of asbestos-like responses, and it didn't. Like the rats just excreted out of their body. And then you have this kind of pivotal research where they lived 90% longer. Yeah, the research is very clear that it's a non-toxic material, but again, I didn't seek out being a guy with a supplement, and we were nanomaterial scientists. So it was really until 2017. So fast forward that 4 or 5 years, a guy by the name of Cliff High has a big YouTube following. He talks about finance and Bitcoins and was taking the product. He was taking ESS 60. And he started talking about the benefits. And because he had such a big following, the whole industry sold out, except for us, because
Wow.
my company is the largest manufacturer and distributor of the product that is used. And so we didn't sell out. It was actually, you'll appreciate this, it was right during Harvey that happened. And so we couldn't ship for 3 days because we couldn't get to the office, but we never ran out of material. And then that was kind of latter part of 2017. When we came into 2018, we were like, okay, now this supplement has landed in our lap with a really big thud. What are we going to do with it? And for me, I really had two kind of things that I needed to wrestle with. The first one is moral. I take it, my wife takes it. I believe it's safe. I'm comfortable selling it to you.
Right.
And then the next one is legal. And the governing bodies are the FDA and the FTC, and we're on the right side of those two institutions. And so it was really in 2018 we kind of pulled not for human consumption off of the labeling and really started working to get this into more hands. And the testimonials that we're getting, you would think if it extended your life by 90%, a lot of people, I say, hey, would you like to live longer? And someone like, well, not really. And I said, well, what if you were healthy, right, and happy? And they're like, oh, well, yeah,
because most people think you get too old and you're just kind of sitting there, right, waiting for the end.
Yeah, and so these rats, it was never noted in the literature in that peer-reviewed published study that the rats who were given the ESS 60, that they, were any different. They just lived a healthy life that was 90% longer. And so not surprisingly, we're getting really powerful testimonials about what this material is doing this product is doing for people.
That's incredible. And then also the fact that there aren't so many competitors yet as there are for the CBD stuff. Because I've got 5 or 6 friends I can think of that were thinking, oh, I'm building a Shopify store. I'm trying to do drop shipping for CBD products. And
Yep.
it's becoming where everyone's trying to get in on it. And it's definitely a huge industry. But if you could find other ways like the avenue that you're going down that have similar benefits and testimonials, then it's definitely worth pursuing.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
we've even looked at because our product can go into CBD oil, so we'll at some point probably have an ESS 60 in CBD oil, and we're trying to figure out that industry and understand where would we get a reputable source of CBD oil, and we're having a hard time. Like, we come from a science background, we've got all the equipment that we need to test it. Like, we've been using that equipment since '91, and so we're getting samples, and we're getting really one of the techniques is the HPLC, high performance liquid chromatography. And so we get these reports and we're like, hey, we want to reproduce this result. What's the mobile phase in this particular study? And to kind of wave a broad hand over that industry, the guy's like, dude, I gave you this sheet. Is it on the sheet? I mean, it seems to be the kinds of conversations we have with people in that industry. And so we're, there are very talented people in that industry, and we're working hard to find them so that when we bring that product to market, it's going to be a reputable product.
Interesting. And I actually worked in the manufacturing side of things before, so I can picture getting a sheet of numbers that the average consumer wouldn't understand. Anytime they did a conformance test or quality did some kind of thing, I'm just like, nope, I know this is what I need to fulfill the order or whatever, but I have no idea what it's telling me.
Yeah. And so we're digging into that because,
Okay, good.
because we actually see fraud in our industry already. So we know that there's got to be fraud happening in CBD. I mean, it's just, we know it. And so when we get a certificate of analysis, we're like, okay, great. Well, we want to reproduce that. Like, thank you for your certificate. I don't know where you got it. I don't know exactly how you got it. And apparently some of the people, at least the sales teams that we're talking to, have no idea how they got that piece of information.
Wow.
Trying to dig into that.
Yeah, that's definitely worth doing. And that's one thing that I always wonder about in those types of industries. And friends who have done, taken supplements and things like that, when I ask them, do you think it works? Like, do you feel any of the benefits? Sometimes they're not really sure if it's just a placebo effect of them thinking that the pre-workout or whatever it is that they took gave them energy to have a great workout. So it's definitely worth digging into and fact checking, I would say.
Yeah. So the testimonial that is probably like across the board really consistent with what we're getting is people report that they sleep better. Now, I recently listened to a book called Why We Sleep. By the way, it's one of the scariest books I've ever read, because like you'll read this and it's got really strong statistics on like what happens when you don't sleep. And so you're like, part of me in my head, even right now, is like, I think I might need to go take a nap so I can remember this conversation, because the stats are pretty bad. I mean, it's bad for your cardio, it's bad for your heart, it's bad for diabetes, it's bad for so many things. And so if the only thing our product does is help you sleep better, that's going to help mental, physical, emotional well-being.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I'm starting to do more too. I have the sleep timer on my phone. It chimes when it's 30 minutes before bed, and then I go to bed on time.
That's
But I
good.
understand that's how your body heals and restores. And so many people try to cut it short because they look at that as time taken away from your life and your business and your family. But then you aren't able to perform at that maximum level because you're operating on 50% batteries.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's like, and listen, like it sounds like you're already convinced, right? So you're a believer in sleep. If
I
you
am.
read that book, you might take it up a couple more notches. Maybe 7 to 8, they call it sleep opportunity. Maybe 7 to 8 hours of sleep opportunity isn't enough.
Really, 7 to 8 hours? I'm going to have to read that book.
Well, so I think he says really it's right about anything under 6 to 7 hours of sleep opportunity. That's really, really pushing the envelope.
Right.
And then it's kind of cool because he confirms that there are in fact night owls and morning larks. Like it's legitimate, and the night owls get a bad rap. You're like, you just go to bed earlier, and why are you lazy and not getting up earlier? And in fact, if you think about when a long time ago when we were in camps, like if somebody stays up an extra 3 to 4 hours and then somebody wakes up 3 to 4 hours earlier than them, there's a lot less time where the entire tribe is without somebody who's awake, and it's a safety situation.
Right. So it actually works out where some people are awake and others are sleeping, and then they switch off.
And so they're like, that's in us, that's genetically in us. So it's great. Like it's the right thing for us. So
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Why We Sleep.
Why We Sleep. Okay, I'll have to link that up in the show notes just in case anyone wants to go check that out. And I know sleeping is important, but I never really figured out why. I just know that I feel good when I wake up.
Yeah.
And I feel cranky when I don't get enough.
Yeah, it will scare you in the best possible way, right? Scare you to make good decisions as they relate to sleep.
Sadly, fear is actually a big motivator at times. And even my girlfriend would go to sleep with her contacts in all the time. And I would tell her that's bad. I would just say that's bad. I used to have contacts. I have LASIK now.
Yeah.
But she would never listen to me. And then she saw some article on Facebook of somebody's eyes like green with some kind of disease from doing that. And now she doesn't sleep with contacts. So fear works.
It really is a great motivator.
Fear, but also just information. If you can show statistics and stuff, sometimes that's just what people need to make a change in their lives instead of just folklore or whatever, the story that they think that their friends are trying to tell them.
Yeah, I don't remember which book I read that was talking about what are the things that help motivate people the most, and it really is just data. So if I think it talked about, remember the old learning how to drive, and in school they're showing you all these gory pictures, and that was your brain just turns off at those moments. And
Right.
when you just talk about the statistics, then you're able to kind of objectively look at that data and make decisions for yourself. And so that's, I mean, you may have seen a gory image and that really sunk in, but some people, and I think that particular literature was like most people, as a broad base of people, you just need the statistics. Like you can lose your eyesight in X percentage of the cases, like,
Yeah.
oh, well, now I'm going to start taking my contacts out.
And then they can weigh that before they make the decision. I actually see a lot of that when I'm driving. I'll see a sign. I think they update it frequently and they show you how many deaths happened year to date in Texas from drinking and driving related accidents.
Yep.
When you see the number continue to rise throughout the year, it really makes you think twice because like you realize, wow, that's actually a pretty big number of people who continue to get in accidents.
Yeah. Yeah. Just Uber.
Yeah, Uber's the way to go. Don't take your contacts out before you go to bed.
Yeah. You can take them out in the Uber on the way home.
There you go. Win-win. You get your save time doing multitasking. So, Chris, what exactly do you tell people that you do when they ask? This was kind of a problem that I had when I started trying a few different ideas out, and I had an invention, and I was like, what do I tell them? Because I kind of do a lot.
Yeah. So there's one particular story. So we had UPS picking up a package from our office, and this is way back. This was probably in maybe even like 95, 96. And so we were like, we had all the information and we're excited and we're sharing it with this UPS driver. And it was, this 3 to 5 minute kind of description. And we finished and the UPS driver was like, so basically you're scientists. And we were like,
Basically, yeah. That's the short, easy version of it.
So I tell people, I'm a carbon nanomaterial scientist, and the glazed look that comes across is like, yeah,
They're like a carbo water.
yeah, this, and what do they use that for? And so it's
Right.
actually a little easier with this supplement is to like, well, I have a supplement. I'm an accidental supplement guy because the story is a little more complicated than I just decided to make a supplement. And then I just start talking about the supplement and the research that's been done on it. And it's fun. Like my job right now is to like spread the word of something that is helping people and seems, the literature says will help them live 90% longer. And wow, like I'm so lucky, just so lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome that you've been able to craft that story from pivoting from your initial business model and now having the supplements. I love hearing the stories and how people get to where they are because it usually doesn't align with the initial vision that they had in mind.
It certainly wasn't my vision. So, in 2018, we kind of make the decision, yeah, we're going to go down this path. And we, continue to get phone calls. I like to have phone calls with customers 3 to 4 times a week.
Okay.
I'll pick up the phone or have them transfer a call to me. And they'll give these amazing testimonials. And I'm, part as a whatever, a guy who owns a business, I'm like, okay, these are great testimonials and obviously really good for business. But as a scientist that's in me, I'm like, well, we need more data. We need more research. And, so I'm just as skeptical as anyone out there. And the data keeps coming in and we're supporting research that's going to, first off, we want to duplicate that original experiment. By the way, when that experiment came out, I really kind of went on a journey. I think I started the first part of the journey was, is this actually the longest longevity experiment? And so far, it turns out it has. If anybody out there has heard of a longer one, I want to know about it. Send me the literature. I want to speak, from the right place on that subject. And this has been really hard to find. And I really do believe that there's a number. What percentage of medical research do you do on rats that does or does not apply to humans, right? Like it's a smart, so here these rats live 90% longer. Are you saying that we will live 90% longer? And I actually had a conversation with a professor out of DePaul University, and I asked him that exact question. And he said, this is really interesting and I think really telling. He says there's one particular study that people will hold up and say, hey, here's the study that proves you shouldn't assume what happens in rats happens into humans. And so then he told me about the study. Basically, the study was a fertility drug. They gave it to the rats. The rats were in fact more fertile. And then they gave it to humans. The humans were also more fertile, but the fetuses were deformed. And so this is what
Okay.
people will hold up and say, hey, this is that case. Don't believe what happens in rats. And what the professor from DePaul said was, well, it turns out, had they looked at the fetuses of the rats, they were also deformed. And
Oh,
so,
they hadn't looked at them. Okay.
right. And so it wasn't like the one case that people will hold up and say you can't equate rat to human is actually a flawed study, not flawed results, right?
Right, right.
And so kind of in that, he's saying, in my mind, he's saying, Chris, it's somewhere between 95 and 100%. What happens to rats happens to humans. And so I'm kind of saying that, yes, we could take this product and live 90% longer. And those rats were healthy and didn't have any tumors when they died, having lived even 90% longer.
Right. And that's funny because people always do that. They'll point out the one thing and say, see, I told you, I knew it wasn't going to work, but they're looking at the wrong cause of they're evaluating the results incorrectly because, like you said, the experiment was flawed or maybe the actions that were taken weren't necessarily correct.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So, and I'm still on a hunt. I'm going to continue to ask professors and people who do rat studies and human studies and like, what is this percentage? But right now, it's a really, really high percentage.
Yeah,
And this is so far the longest longevity experiment on mammals. So,
that's very interesting. So I guess with the product, whenever you're telling people what exactly it is, how do you pitch it? What's the words that you use? And do you say it's like a vitamin almost? Like I know you said it's a supplement, but
yeah. So I just call it a supplement, right?
okay.
So there's some kind of strategic aspect that it can be a mineral. It is a naturally occurring molecule. So it's a molecule. In fact, this is so interesting how small the molecule is. In one jump, so it's our molecule ESS60 in olive oil. And one drop of our product, there's 474 times more ESS60 molecules than there are cells in your body.
Wow. In one
Because it's
drop of olive oil?
one drop of our olive oil product, right? So it's really it's a molecules. It's 60 atoms across. Basically, it's not even a full 60 atom. It's 60 atoms on the exterior of it, like that soccer ball shape. So it's only about, let's see if it's only about 15 to 25 atoms across, right?
Okay.
So it is incredibly small. And so what I'll tell people is, yes, it's a naturally occurring material. If you take a candle flame and collect the soot off of a candle flame, you'll find like parts per million, parts per billion of ESS60 in that. There's actually, when the asteroid struck the major asteroid struck the Earth, there's a boundary layer called the KT boundary layer, and there's a high preponderance of ESS60 in that layer. And so it is naturally occurring. In order to kind of, you can't mine it, it's parts per million in a candle flame, so really you have to manufacture this, but you're manufacturing the exact molecule. It's not like some things where you're trying to get this enzyme and maybe it's not exactly the same enzyme or didn't get made through the same process. It's literally the molecule. It's 60 carbon atoms in this ESS60 molecule. And
Okay.
so we take that, we manufacture it, we put it in olive oil, and then people will take that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about some of the testimonials. Obviously, we don't have anybody who is saying, "Hey, it's doubled my life." That hasn't that
Would
hasn't
you have a
happened.
150-year-old come by and tell you, hey, look, I've been taking it?
Here I am. So we are getting testimonials, and anytime I talk about testimonials, even better sleep, it's important. The FDA hasn't evaluated the product. It's intended to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent any disease.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that sleep is one of the most consistent things. And in fact, sometimes I have to ask people. So there's a lady in my office just down, a couple doors down from my office. She's actually going through some cancer treatment, and I gave her a couple bottles. I wanted to help support her in that, and I visited her. I think it was about 15 days after I gave her the bottles. And I was like, so have you noticed anything? And she goes, well, no, not really. I haven't noticed anything. And I said, are you sleeping? How's your sleep? And she goes, well, it's funny you should ask. I've even posted I've even posted on Facebook. I'm up again at 5:30 in the morning, but I'm not tired. I'm just awake. And she goes, and that happened when I started taking it. And so, it's so subtle. If you wake up 1 or 2 hours early one day, you're like, okay, that's a fluke. And then 2-3 days, okay, it's a little bit of a fluke. By the 4th or 5th day, you're like, well, that's just how it is. And it's hard to remember when it started and what difference you made.
Right.
So sleep is the most kind of prominent one. The next one is pain reduction. So people with arthritis are reporting that it's reducing their arthritis pain. I had another, again, this is very similar story. A guy was in our office. We're a manufacturing and warehouse facility. People can come and pick up the product and we'll call, but we're not a retail storefront. When we really early in 2018, I was up at the office on a Sunday and somebody knocked on the door. It felt kind of like a clandestine. He was like, do you have ESS 60? Yes, I do.
Like under the counter. Yeah.
It felt like, and so he came in and I actually, like, we don't have a cash register. So I was like, give me your card and I'll go put in a web.
Put it in the system or Stripe or whatever.
So he bought it. And I noticed he was at our office. This was, probably 6 months later, and it was his 3rd purchase. And we were actually running a special on 3 bottles. So like, okay, so this guy's clearly getting some benefits. And I asked him, are you getting any benefits? And he said, well, no. And I'm like, okay. I mean, there is some logic. If you want to live 90% longer, this is the best literature, right? The literature supports this is the way to do it. But I kind of think that you would, see some benefits. And we had this awkward moment of silence. And then he goes, well, does it, and he kind of gestured towards his knuckles, does it help with arthritis? And like, again, FDA hasn't evaluated it, but we are getting people who are reporting that it's helping with arthritis. And he goes, oh, well, then it helped my arthritis. And I used to have this like click, click, click noise in my knee. And that's gone now. I'm like, okay, well, that's good. And then he said, and I haven't jogged in like 10 years. I'm about to go on my like 8th jog. I'm starting to jog again. I feel like that's probably pretty good. And he goes, and the last thing is I'm feeling less stressed at work. And I was like, kind of gave him the weird look. And he goes, well, the job's the same. The people are the same. The stress at work is the same, but I feel less stressed. I'm like, well, it's too bad you're not getting any benefits.
It sounds like a lot of coincidences happening at once if it's not related to that.
Yeah, so that's the kind of things that we're getting reported, and yeah, it's again, I'm very lucky to be in this position and to help put it out, and then doing the right things, which is supporting additional research so that we can better understand, kind of confirm the results that are already out there and better understand what's actually driving, what are the mechanisms that drive. We know that it's a great antioxidant. We know that it's a great anti-inflammatory, and kind of current longevity research says the reason we age is because of oxidation and inflammation. So
right.
The product does address those 2 issues, but to what degree and if this is consistent. I've actually tried to reach out to some of the researchers on that book, Why We Sleep, because it would be very easy for them to kind of document better sleep. And so I want to get some product into their hands so that they can say, hey, look, their NREM or their REM sleep is better or worse or whatever, just so that we've got some more data. Because again, the sleep seems to be the consistent one. Well, and this is interesting. So in that book, sleep aids are a problem, because sleep aids don't let you sleep. They knock you out, right? So you're
That's interesting distinction.
Right? You're not getting your REM sleep. You're not getting your NREM sleep. You're just, unconscious. And so those sleep aids are not good. By the way, it's a $2 billion industry. And yeah, what they're selling isn't really helping. The reports we get, most of our customers take the product in the morning and then report better sleep at night. So it's not knocking you out. We don't know exactly what's going on, but it seems to be like a healthier situation. My current theory is that because it's doing such a good job as an antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, when you're going to sleep, your sleep tends to handle those issues first. And since those issues are already taken care of, now your sleep can kind of move on to the next things that it needs to do. just a theory. Like I don't have any research behind it, but
Yeah.
trying to come up with explanations.
That's interesting. And I'm sure the testimonials probably play a big part in how you sell something. I know that was something I wanted to talk to you about is how do you sell something that quote unquote seems too good to be true and there's
Yeah.
still some research being done. I know there is some research already done, but when you're selling supplements, you just say, well, the FDA hasn't approved it. So that it kind of goes back to the thing that we talked about earlier, where I ask my friends, do you feel better, results, energy? And they kind of think that they do, but they're not scientifically sure. So
Yeah.
how do you go about selling something that seems too good to be true?
So, and I would see like, yeah, I think the statement lived 90% longer. Most people are going to be like, okay, yeah,
Kind of
sure.
like raise an eyebrow, like really show me the numbers, right? Right.
Yeah. So one of the things that we're doing and that we know we need to do is so there's a small group of people who've kind of heard of this product and are willing to go out and try it. And we're like through podcasts like this, trying to expand that market and open it up. The other way that we're going is through affiliate marketing, right? Because we've all there's influencer marketing like podcasts like this. And then there's affiliate marketing where there are people who are influencers and are kind of looking for products that they can help monetize their podcasts or their blogs or their YouTube channel.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so we know kind of the first angles that we have are this more broad base. Hey, you can live healthier and be happier, but we know that we're going to have to niche down and say like, we have testimonials of people who have hair growing back where it wasn't growing for a while and it's coming in dark, not gray, right? So this is with obviously an older population. So we'll probably have like a specific vertical in a product, at least a marketing strategy, if not a separate product that is like hair growth, and then pain relief or arthritis relief, right? So that'll be a particular kind of vertical marketing strategy. Better sleep will be a marketing strategy.
Right.
So all of these things will have their own vertical kind of marketing strategy, and those will be, frankly, they'll be more believable, right? Like this
Yeah.
with arthritis pain is more believable than extends your life by 90%. We've got better research on the 90% piece, like it's a peer-reviewed published study. We've just got testimonials as it relates to kind of arthritis and back pain. My dentist gave us a video testimonial about his back pain. He's bent over patients all the time and how it significantly helped this back pain.
And now that you mention it, I think I remember hearing about some kind of supplement or medication that had a whole bunch of benefits to it, but for some reason it wasn't selling. And so they simply marketed it as arthritis relief, or they would go individually because when someone's looking for a problem or a solution to a problem that they have, they want the thing that's only the solution for that one problem. They don't want like the catch-all because again, it seems too good to be true.
Yep.
How effective is it really in this one problem instead of just going to that one source? So
yeah,
strategy for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we'll be kind of rolling that out. That'll probably be latter part of this year and going into 2020. So
Awesome. And then how do you go about gaining trust in an industry where, like you said, there is some kind of fraud activity or scammers out there? How do you do that?
I think one of them is, I think one of the really good ones is me being like, I'm as skeptical as anybody out there, and hopefully people have that sense. And so me being on videos and understanding that one of the founders and owners like didn't want to go down this path, didn't wake up and I think there's two paths for supplements. So one of them is going to be, hey, I want to help people and I'm going to go down this path, and what does that look like? And then the other one is just plain out financial gain. There's obviously a lot of money to be made in supplements.
Yeah.
And I hope people understand I didn't choose either one of those. Like this
fell in your lap, right? Yeah.
It fell in my lap. And so I'm trying to do the most responsible thing. And so I think having videos that are out there, and I try and participate in Facebook forums and provide measured responses, which by the way is hard sometimes. and doing podcasts like this where people can understand, okay, here's the people, here's the character that is behind the product. And I think that's one of the best ways. And then we just get so many good testimonials from people really quickly who have taken the product. So some of our testimonials are like the next day. And so it just makes it easy for us to say, hey, we're running one of the affiliate marketing is a way that you can test the product for about 14 days. And we know that if people actually do test the product, that they're going to like the product and kind of stay on the subscription. And
Mhm.
so that's kind of you get over it by, from a typical marketing strategy, how do you take away the risk factor, right? And so if there's
Yeah.
a money back guarantee, then you've taken away that risk factor.
That's a really big strategy I see with a lot of software services, SaaS services,
Yep.
where they offer the 14-day free trial. And if you don't like it, you just cancel. And they know that a certain percent might cancel, a very small percentage, but everyone else is going to love it. And they'll be so into that software. And this has happened to me with several different softwares where here I am sticking around, whether I use it or not. I like it so much that I like the idea of using it that I continue to pay. And
Yep.
obviously, whenever I actually do go in and implement those softwares, I benefit from them. So
Yeah, they're actually, that's one of the biggest challenges. I had my team kind of switched over on a project management tool. And I remember the company did a really smart thing. They did the trial, but they kept extending the trial because they know that like you're not going to really, it's hard to get you to use it and then your team to use it. And then, so they extended, I think they extended it. It was about 3 months in, they're like, okay, now we're done. But it was very smart because I ended up using it for my company. So,
yeah.
so those are just good strategies to get people.
And then once you're hooked and you're starting to see the benefits and you start to get other people using it in your life or on your team, then it's easier to stay on that subscription plan for some period of time.
For sure. I have this very interesting recent case about what kind of momentum, positive or negative, there are with consumers. So I've got 2 office locations, and one of the office locations, we offer a pretty good employee discount for our product. And so a number of my team members have taken it. They like the product, but they're not like, I go to that office and they don't even ask me to bring the product, right? But I mentioned to them the other day, do you want me to get you on subscription so it happens automatically? And they're all yes. So they all, like, in their head, they want it, but they don't even ask me, hey, Chris, next time you come to this office, bring a bottle of the product. That's how kind of lazy consumers are. And I'm throwing myself in that group,
I'm
right?
guilty. Yeah.
Right?
Everything comes Amazon subscription model to my door.
Yes, as often as good. I never run out.
Yeah. And it's easy because anytime I'm like, oh no, the dog food's running out. Oh, look, it just got delivered. How
That's
convenient.
cool. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to add for the audience? I know we were talking about the product and how to overcome skepticism. I just want to leave kind of an open floor for you to talk about anything else that you want to include to the audience here.
Yeah, well, I think, kind of sticking in the thing of entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur since 1991. I actually own another company. It's a marketing company. And so that company works with other companies all the time. And I would say that perseverance is the thing that is really going to get you where you want to go. Understand and have some faith that you need to kind of believe that you're doing the right thing and keep doing that right thing. And get a mentor. Like from an entrepreneur perspective, get a mentor, whether you're paying for a business coach or whether you actually have, a mentor that you're having coffee with once or twice a week, even. Have a mentor who can guide you through these, and you can bounce ideas off of and can talk to you about the struggles. Because as a business owner, you're entrepreneur, you're gonna have struggles, and it's about getting over them. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it, and there would be no way for you to have a business doing it.
That's such great advice. I mean, your story is proof that you've been consistent. And I know the younger generations, the instant, we call it the microwave society, right? And I'm guilty of this too. I could get everything ordered to my door. It can be very difficult to stick things out after 5 months of not seeing progress. Even with this podcast, when I started it, I was like, man, 5 months, I have like 10 downloads a month. Is this even worth doing?
Woohoo!
Yeah. And if you stick with it long enough, then you're going to start to see traction and you'll start to establish your place as to the expert in that industry, because clearly you can show people, look, I've been in business, since you said the 80s, right?
91.
Since 91. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been in business since 91. I mean, not to date myself, I was 1 year old at the time. So you've been in business for a very long time.
Yeah.
And then how would you say you go about finding a mentor? I know a lot of people will hear this and they'll say, okay, cool, I know I need a mentor. Where do I find one? How do I find one? And then how do you make sure you pick the right one so you're not, getting distracted? Like if you're in real estate, do you find a real estate mentor? If you're in the supplement space, do you find someone who's started a company like that before?
So I would recommend, you're exactly right. So if you're in real estate, find somebody who's in real estate that you look up to, and you will be surprised at how willing people are. So for the price of a cup of coffee, you buy them a cup of coffee. Let me kind of take a short little segue here, and I'm going to ask you a little question. And the question is, what is the number one way to impress someone?
I'd say the number one way to impress someone is to know about them, read their book, possibly do your homework. Don't just ask them for something. I've learned that, trust me. I
Yeah,
used to come out with the ask straight out the gate, but you need to add value first.
yeah. So you like know them, right? So the
Right.
number one way to impress someone is to be impressed by them.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Right. So here's the kind of long and short for everyone that you're trying to impress. The person who is impressed by me is a genius. And I'm using like the all of us me. So the number one way to impress someone is to be impressed by them. So when you approach these mentors, you may be shy and you may be like, oh, they're too busy, they don't have time for me. You're giving them probably one of the best compliments that they could ever get, is like, I see value in what you're doing and I think I could learn from you because you're impressive. So know that in asking them to mentor you, you are giving them a huge compliment, right? You are in fact impressing them. And so
Right.
find that mentor that's in your industry. I've had different mentors across my career. At times I've had a business coach. So find a business coach that really makes sense for you, to kind of hire and pay them to be a mentor. There are really good business coaches out there. And so I think that's search those people out that are going to add that you think, hey, I want to be like them. Let's have them as my mentor so I can be like them.
Yeah, thank you for that advice. And I know sometimes the mentor relationship, it could be hit or miss depending on who you're reaching out to, how much time they have. But like you said, if you make them feel important, they'll be willing to make time. That is a huge compliment to them. I've
Yeah.
even had people reach out to me from listening to the podcast, and I'm like, whoa, I don't feel like I'm really qualified to be at this celebrity status. Someone said that they felt like I was a celebrity. I'm just a regular dude who's, paying my mortgage and trying to make my
Yeah.
life happen in Houston. So other
Yeah.
people see that and they look up to you and they'll reach out. But I think more importantly, like you mentioned, sometimes just getting a business coach and paying for that, they will make time for you because you are their client.
Yeah.
You'll feel more inclined to take action because it's your money and you don't want to just give them money and then not act on the things that they're telling you to do.
Yep.
So I see the value in doing both the mentorship approach as well as the business coach approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that's what I would say. And any kind of another thing to wrap up, I'd love to make an offer to your audience if you'd like, get a coupon code to them.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
so
Definitely.
what coupon code would you like? Because we can customize it to anything. It could be get a mentor, it could be entrepreneurship, it could be, that's a kind of a long one, but
Yeah, I didn't realize how hard it was to spell entrepreneur until I put it in my podcast title. And now every time I'm telling people, oh, it's called Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast, I kind of see them try to type it out. It's a word that you don't really type or write very often.
yes.
And so I realized that it's a little more difficult than I thought. So I guess if we could use the code EMP just for Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast, EM
Got
is
it.
Mary, P.
Yep. EMP. So we'll make EMP, and the way that'll work, it'll be a $15 discount. If you go to myvitalc.com, they can get the product and scroll to the bottom of the page. The product's about $99. If you get on subscription, it's $74.95. You can cancel that at any time. And any one of the products on our site, that $15 coupon will apply.
Awesome. So everybody, Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast listeners, the code will be EMP at myvitalc.com, and I'll put all the links in the description.
Yep.
Great. Well, Chris, it's been great having you on the show. I guess where can our audience go to learn more about you and SES Research Industries? Are there any other websites or social media handles that they should go look at?
Well, really, so My Vital C will get you most of the information.
Okay.
That's a brand that's wholly owned by SES Research, so you could check that out as well. That's sesres.com. And yeah, connect with me through LinkedIn. I'm easy to find. And I do have another kind of marketing podcast, so you can find me through there. Connect with me there if you'd like. Just you hit, Chris Burres, Burres, in Google, and you'll find lots of ways to connect with me.
Awesome. I love this age of social media. It's so easy to find people. You just
Yes.
Google them, Facebook them, and you find them. And once you find one thing, they have the links to everything else.
Yep.
I can't
Very
even
true.
imagine how people did it back in the day. Like my parents talk about how they met and they'd have to call each other or send letters. I'm like, what? What is this? Yeah. Here we are having a beautiful face-to-face conference. You're, another city away, but we're both in Texas and real time sending values to the audience. So I love it. But Chris, it's been great having you on the show. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I probably need to dust off the chemistry book because we were talking about molecules and atoms, and I'm like, yeah, it wasn't a class that I did so great at.
Benzene, I've heard of benzene. I feel like it's really important, and it turns out it is.
It's probably something, that you can see under a microscope, but I probably skipped that chapter.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. This is a lot of fun and really good stuff. I like what you're doing.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And I hope to keep in touch. And since you live in Houston too, we'll have to meet up for a cup of coffee or something.
That sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Take care.
Yeah.